Today, SEO is facing one of the biggest shakeups we've seen in years. Between generative AI, search experience changes, and how AI chatbots are evolving, the entire landscape is undergoing a massive disruption. So for this special episode, I wanted to explore what's really happening in search right now and where it's all going. And I can't think of a better guest than Kevin Indig to discuss this. Kevin advised some of the fastest growing companies on the planet. Think Reddit, Dropbox, Nextdoor, and Snapchat. He led SEO and growth at companies like Shopify, G2, and Atlassian. And every week, over 22,000 marketers rely on his email newsletters to stay ahead of the curve. So in my conversation with Kevin, we discussed how AI is changing the world of SEO, what the future might look like, and most importantly, how to prepare for this new AI-first reality and not get left behind. But enough with the intro, let's roll the episode.
Ahrefs Podcast.
Kevin, thanks for doing this. Happy to have you on Ahrefs Podcast. A long time coming.
I was waiting for this.
And like I told you, this is not going to be my typical kind of interrogation of the guest when I'm trying to get to the bottom of things and like challenge them on everything. But more so like I want to catch up with you because I know that you're like deeply entrenched in SEO industry. You are keeping your hand on the pulse of what's happening with AI, with search, with everything. And it's almost like I want to exchange notes with you, like what you're seeing, what I'm seeing, where we agree, we disagree. So basically AI and SEO would be the topic of our conversation. Sounds good?
I'm a little relieved because in my head I was mentally preparing for a sparring session, and I was getting my soft gloves out. So yeah, let's do it, man.
Well, you never know. I might throw a few jabs here and there. So
jabs are okay.
The two kind of overarching topics that I really wanted to discuss with you is how AI is changing SEO and search kind of from two directions. From one direction, we have the AI that is integrated into search with like the AI overviews, with Google AI mode, yada, yada, yada. So the search is changing itself. From the other end, we have using AI to do like marketing and SEO. So I think a good place to start is actually search, how search is changing. So I posted on LinkedIn the other day the crocodile chart where impressions and clicks are going different ways. What is your perspective? Is this something you're seeing across the board? Is anyone immune to this? Like, what is the situation with AI overviews? Let's start from that.
I haven't seen anyone immune to this, just to take that off the top. 2024 to me is the peak traffic year. I think we'll look back at 2024 and we'll say, man, that was the peak the most traffic that we've ever seen. And I'm intentionally not saying organic traffic. I'm saying traffic as a whole because Google is the biggest traffic referrer still, right? Which we'll bank that for later because I think it's an important point here in the context. But yes, clicks are going down, impressions are going up. It does seem like the impression increase is mostly due to the way that Google counts impressions and positions for AI overviews, right? So essentially, based on their definition, every URL that is cited in an AI overview automatically gets an impression once the AI overview loads. Since it's at the top, it loads basically for every search of that topic or of that keyword, better said. And even if it only loaded when people click the load more button of the AI overview, so the expansion, most people do that, right? We're going to come back to the study that I did in a while, but to take that up front as well, we did the study and we saw that over 85% of people click the load more button because they want to see what the rest of the AI overview says. So that's why we see this increase.
Over 85% of people click the load more on AI overview?
Yeah,
that's absolutely not my personal experience. I never click them. Typically, like maybe I'm searching for different things, but for me, the answer that I need for the kind of for the queries where I would be satisfied with the AI overview, I don't typically click see more. So that's an interesting takeaway.
Do you get the kind of answers you're looking for from the AI overview though? Like the before you click on the load more?
Oh, it depends. It's like a very philosophical question, so let's not go into this. But again, to bring that back a little into kind of actionable things and Ahrefs product, because we are scraping AI overviews essentially to see like which brands show up there. But if I remember correctly, we don't like our scraper or like our data partners who are doing this, they don't click on load more. So we only see the snippet before it. So it's interesting if 85% of people are clicking it, but again, even if they're clicking, doesn't mean they read it start to finish.
Correct. Yes, that's the same thing that we saw in the study. I'm going to explain the study in just a second, right? But to finish that point, we also noticed that the majority of people, they read the upper third of the AI overview. And it's the same behavior that people had before AI overviews, right? They would just read the top of the search results most of the time. They skim, right? Don't get me wrong. They scan and they skim the whole AIO or the whole search results page, but they pay most of their attention on the top third. So it is most important to be cited early on or to be mentioned in the AI overview. You're correct in that sense.
Okay. So again, you are right now kind of a free agent. You are doing advising and consulting. So you have multiple clients, which we can use as a kind of a sample size to see what is their kind of attitude to AI overviews and loss of traffic. Again, maybe the first question, do you see much correlation, and again, not even among your clients, but with other people who you talk to, do you see much correlation between loss of traffic and loss of revenue? Because I think it was Rand Fishkin who published an article, traffic down, revenue up, or something along those lines. Actually, this is kind of the same thing that we're seeing at Ahrefs. Our traffic is going down, but revenue is still climbing. So we're still growing, which is very good to know. But yeah, what are you seeing yourself?
It's a great call out because it's so important to differentiate between traffic and revenue. Across my clients and some other sites that I have insight to, I'm seeing on average revenue relatively flat. The correlation with the traffic loss is low. Obviously there's some businesses where it's incredibly high, like publishers, right? Publishers not in a good place now. Affiliates, same way.
Sorry. Affiliate was again affiliate marketing, affiliate SEO was such a cheat code in those like past, 5 years that I kind of giggle at that this is all coming to an end. It was just so easy.
It's a tricky one because, like some super black hat affiliates are making bank right now, right? They're spamming LLMs, great. So there is a kind of piece of the pie that is still rich. And then on the other hand, right, there's these interesting conversations of, should maybe OpenAI take an affiliate commission for products that they sell? I don't want to veer off too much, but it's like a very, sure, affiliates were always the middleman, but then there's also the question like, who is the new middleman? Anyway, so affiliates, publishers struggling. SaaS companies typically flat to up. E-commerce, not a huge impact from AI overviews yet, because the whole e-commerce landscape has been changing before AI overviews already. And then there are marketplaces like consumer marketplaces or B2B marketplaces, at least what's left of them. And their revenue is more slightly down, but still not to the same degree that traffic is lost. And so that brings us to like an interesting theory, right? So either, was a lot of the top of the funnel content that SEOs created, was that maybe more impactful than we thought, but we were never able to attribute it? Or are we also seeing more AI overviews for commercial queries? I would say probably both, right? If I had to give an answer, I would say it's probably both. I think on the one hand, there was a lot of these like very early user journey topics, like what is blah, 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 or how to do blah, 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 that is very basic, that maybe had a bit more impact on the downstream funnel than we thought, but it was just harder to attribute. And at the same time, I think that I don't have data to prove that yet, but I do think that the so-called Dunkelziffer in German, right? Like the actual number of how often AI overviews show up goes way beyond what we're able to measure because people prompt longer questions. And so I'm saying all of that because that explains a little bit of the revenue impact that we're seeing. There are some companies, especially in the SaaS space, that are actually seeing higher revenue after the launch of AI Overviews in conjunction with all the other LLMs, because people get better answers to their questions faster and they get to a conversion point much, much faster in their journey. But then there are also other companies that benefited largely from their size, from their number of pages, in the old SEO world, that are now struggling because that same advantage doesn't really exist anymore in LLMs, at least right now.
It's interesting that you mentioned that AI overviews are starting to show up for commercial queries. The last time we checked, and I admit that was, I think, 3 months ago, the last time we studied the search intent of keywords that show AI overviews, it was 99.9% informational. So like the overwhelming number of keywords that show AI overviews were informational. So maybe it's time for us to repeat the study and see if really a sizable amount of commercial queries has crept in. Is like, did you say someone else's study along these lines?
No, I came to the same conclusion. I published this like meta review of all the available studies in February, and I came to the same conclusion. It's like all top of the funnel, all informational keywords. Cool. And then I started in March, right, when Google launched the March core update. And at the same time, they significantly dialed up AI overviews. We can talk more about that. But at the same time, I saw AI overviews popping up for so many more queries. And I don't have the data about that yet, but a lot of comparison queries, a lot of where to buy type of queries, right? So I think a bit of this is also how do we define commercial queries? But man, I think this cuts deeper into commercial and transactional than what we're able to measure right now. And I'm very keen for kind of the next study to see if that's true or not.
Yeah, interesting. We need to check. By the way, in our brand radar tool, we have an index of AI overviews. And if you do an empty search, it would show you basically the graph of how many keywords we see AI overviews for. So people can kind of track how Google is rolling out AI overviews and even change countries. Which is very handy to understand, like what's the situation. So my next
question about that. Sorry to quickly interrupt. Just a quick question about this. How is there a cutoff of the number of terms in a prompt or query that you measure? In other words, are you able to measure 30-word prompts and longer?
No. For AI overviews, it's simple. We use the same keyword database that we use for Site Explorer. So all the same keywords that we show you that websites are ranking for, we just pull AI overviews for them and create a separate database. So it's a very, very simple concept, but not that easy kind of to replicate. This is why you don't see any other tools introducing anything like that. So again, this is like a whole different conversation in terms of AI visibility and how do you know that these are the actual prompts, and if you need the actual prompts. Yeah. This is out of scope of our today's conversation. Maybe we can do round 2 and talk about AI visibility.
Deal.
But speaking still about AI visibility, in regards to AI overviews, we have 2 questions left to tackle. First of all, is it useful to show up in those AI overviews, as a brand, as a product or whatever? And second, how? How do you show up in Google's AI overviews? So what do you have along these lines? Sorry for interrupting the interview, but I have a very quick announcement to make. This October, we're bringing Ahrefs Evolve, our 2-day marketing conference, to sunny San Diego. And Kevin Indig is actually one of our speakers at this event. So if you're enjoying our conversation so far, consider getting a ticket to Ahrefs Evolve in San Diego, where you'll get a chance to meet Kevin and maybe even ask him a bunch of your own questions. Go to our website at ahrefsevolve.com to see more details about the event and get your ticket. Again, it's ahrefsevolve.com this October in San Diego. Now back to the episode.
So to answer number 1, we don't know. We don't know. There are cases here and there that show a benefit. But I will also say it's still tricky to track, right?
Yeah.
What's often forgotten is that Google changes AI overviews so much. And so the way that I think about them as a SERP feature or as a product in Google search is that it's very nascent, it's very young. Google is still adjusting all the time. as soon as a Gemini model update comes out, it also impacts AI overviews, right? And so the noise factor is incredibly high, which makes it very hard to consistently measure, right? I often get into these conversations where we see data about AI overviews visibility, and then somebody would go out and like Google it themselves, quote unquote, and then see something different. And so it's very hard, to get the accuracy right for AI overviews. And a large part is because Google changes them all the time and refines them and works on them and all that kind of stuff. So any case study that says we saw this 10, 20, 30% uplift in citations in AI overviews and we saw a bottom line impact, you have to be careful with that. They exist. And they're very rare still because
they
the topic
exist.
is so new.
I didn't see any such case study.
Nothing public, but there are companies that are they're kind of seeing that data in their dashboards and they see some impact on the bottom line. But again, incredibly hard to measure, not just because the AIO data is tricky, but also because since we're getting fewer and fewer clicks, a big piece of the impact needs to come through self-serve attribution. Basically asking people when they sign up, how have you heard about us?
They would just say Google.
Yeah, they would just say Google, right? And so if they remember, right, a lot of times, they might not remember when they first saw you. So super hard to cleanly attribute and measure that to an increase. Now, second question, how do you grow your coverage in AI overviews? A lot of that is in the most simple way to give the most relevant and best answer. And so that is a much harder concept when we're talking about short head keywords, right? So when somebody's looking, for example, for what's the best SEO keyword rank tracker, right? Or maybe just best SEO tool, right? That is a short head keyword. Very hard to say what people really want. When somebody searches, on the other hand, for best rank tracker for 5-people company in the legal space under $200 a month, much more specific, much easier to get to understand what the best answer looks like in this case. And so we have to differentiate here between what types of keywords and prompts are we actually targeting with AI overviews. And the more specific the prompt is that we're targeting, the easier it is to understand what a good answer looks like. And the easier it is to then create content or update your content to appear in AI overviews. So to bring that to a tactical point, right? It's about content freshness, content relevance, like how closely do you match what people are actually prompting or looking for? It's about brand authority and trust. Do people actually, have they heard about you when they see your brand? What sentiment do they have about your brand? Number 4 might be factors like, soft factors like your domain or URL or snippet. Does it communicate that you are especially relevant for this case? But these 3 other factors, trust, freshness, and relevance, are, in my mind, the main ingredients to bake the cake.
Sounds eerily similar to how we used to do SEO in the past decade, basically.
It is.
All the first principles apply.
The first principles apply. And so this is what I think is missing from the big discussion between, GEO, LLMO, AISO, I'm going to list all the acronyms, right? I'm going to send it to the show notes. But, is this new or is this just good SEO? And the answer is yes, right? The core tactics and principles apply. They apply with, at a much, much higher rate. AI accelerates all of that, makes it basically more important to be good in these things. And also, search behavior changes, right? So in order for you to be successful in AI search, there's more dimensions and layers to this. It's not just what you do, it's also what users are doing. And so right now, the biggest difference that I see between AI search optimization and classic SEO is not what we do as SEOs, it's what users are doing. They're changing the behavior. They're searching longer prompts because for 2 decades, Google long tail search was not good. Insert swear word here. And now all of a sudden it's getting really good because LLMs pick up on user intent so much better, right? And so they're changing what they're doing. And on the other side of the search marketplace, you have content inventory that, again, for 2 decades was trained on optimizing for short-head keywords. And now there is a big gap, a vacuum of hyper-specific content that targets these hyper-specific questions that people have.
First of all, I made a note of something you said, that Google is often changing AI overviews. So like if you search for kind of exactly the same thing, which people are still doing, a lot of queries are still kind of 3, 4, 5 words and people are saying the same thing. Or even you might ask the same thing with 6 or 7 words, but adding those like 1 or 2 extra words doesn't really change much for the context of what you're hoping to get. So you might think that it makes sense for Google to save some computational resources and cache those AI overviews. It just makes sense. Like the other day, we did a very odd experiment at Ahrefs blog where we wanted to test kind of AI TLDR block, like don't read, like, which is stupid in a way, like don't read the article. Here's like a quick recap by AI. We did generate the recap with AI, but we didn't generate it on the fly. So we made the block. We even kind of did like a fancy animation. So when you load an article, it's something is kind of loading, and then the AI snippet expands so that to give people an impression, oh, AI has generated this for me. But this was not like generated on the fly. This was cached and included in the page. So I would think that it makes sense for Google to also cache their AI overviews for popular queries, because if you need to do the same thing over and over again, why would you need to generate it every time? And this gives me an idea of yet another research that we could do. We could just track like a couple, 1,000 or 1 million queries and see how much change of the text of AI overview we see over time. And this is where we can also test if Ryan Law, our head of content, and Patrick Stokes, our technical SEO wizard, are watching Ahrefs podcast episodes, because it would be up to them to do this research and publish it on Ahrefs blog. But yeah, that being said, yes, it makes sense to cache your AI overview and not do compute every single time someone searches for this. But we also know that the search results themselves are volatile. So the same page wouldn't rank number 3 like today and tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. Google kind of switches them all the time, which means that they can also pull information from different pages, and maybe they have ways to test if people are satisfied with AI overview that's generated from these 3 pages or AI overview that is generated from these 5 pages. So maybe they're running those tests and identifying which kind of AI answer satisfies people the most. So that is very interesting. Have you seen any studies of like how often Google changes AI overviews?
I've seen something, but I don't have the data top of mind. I think they're changing relatively often. But I would have to look at the data to give you a specific answer. By the way, I would be very excited to see such a feature in the Ahrefs product. So not just showing how many AI overviews appear for your keywords, but how often do they change? What's the change rate? Might be hard to compute, but some like noise factor. Because what I've seen anecdotally in my experience is that it's very similar to keywords, right? So in the classic keywords, we know that the stat like Google sees 15% new queries every day because things change, blah, blah, blah. And so what I've often seen is that in the first couple of weeks that Google sees a new query, it's very hard for Google to understand the exact user intent. They need to send more traffic to the query, blah, blah, blah. And then over time, the results become much more stable because Google understands what people want. I'm seeing the same thing anecdotally in AI overviews. The challenge is that, again, people's prompts are getting so long that we don't have that much traffic for these prompts anymore. And so, Google needs to rethink when a prompt is successfully answered or satisfied by an AI overview, without relying on that much traffic. And sure, you can do things like, do people do follow-up searches? Do they click on the load more? Do they click on a citation? Like Google can track all that stuff, we know, but the dynamics change a little bit. And so in the same sense, I still expect that, as prompts relate to a topic that Google knows better, the change rate calms down, it goes down. But new prompts that Google hasn't seen before, AIOs might change by the hour or at least by the day. By the way, it's also funny that, I do agree that long-term Google needs to cache more. And at the same time, I think right now cost optimization of AI search is mostly an investor story because, they Sundar Pichai said that they decrease costs by 90%. However, whatever that means. But on the one hand, you cannot be like, people are concerned about how much it costs for Google to compute an AIO answer or AIO. And on the other hand, they're spending hundreds of billions in capital expenditure on data centers and cloud infrastructure and all that other kind of stuff, right? So I don't think this is the time for cost optimization. I think Google needs to fend off ChatGPT as a challenger and kind of stabilize the business in that sense, or the product, if you will. And so I don't think cost optimization is top of mind unless it comes to quarterly earning calls, maybe.
Yeah, won't argue with that. But since you mentioned the length of the prompts and you keep calling search queries prompts, I want to do like a very short philosophical detour and kind of ask at which point a search query becomes a task for AI. So like the difference between searching for something when you actually like want to find, a piece of information, a product, a solution to a problem, versus when you need AI to do something. And I think the more words there are in your search query or like a prompt, the more it would steer towards the direction when you are asking AI to like do something for you, rather than you want to find something, go to the website and make a transaction. So in my mind, all these searches that existed before, they will stay, because in many cases when I'm on my phone and I need like some kind of information or some product or like check if the restaurant is available, I don't want to write 20 words. Again, we know that web is increasingly mobile, right? Google has this mobile first indexing because they optimize everything should be optimized for phones, because people spend a lot more time on their phones than on their computers, if we're talking about all people in general. And typing on your phone, you don't write articles on your phone. Maybe someone does, but I never do this. So I think the vast majority of searches, how they were, they're going to stay. It's just like AI unlocks a new way to kind of to use a search engine. You can ask it for something more than just doing a search.
Philosophically, every search is part of an action, right? Not the action of searching, but because you're searching to take action, right? The majority of times when you search, it's just a piece of the puzzle because you want to accomplish something. It's buying a product, it's learning a skill or figuring out information to, maybe, I don't know, whatever we want to do with that information. And so what we're seeing now is that there is some data that came out saying that 30 to 40% of prompts in LLMs are generative, right? So they are about people taking a specific action, like create this spreadsheet, draw this image, etc. And that fluctuates over time as the capabilities of LLMs grow. You probably remember this Studio Ghibli trend where everybody, created a picture of the Ghibli-fied version. That all of a sudden, generative tasks spiked through the roof, right? It was so bad that the OpenAI data centers were melting. Absolutely zero
commercial value for any business in those prompts.
Yes, that is maybe LinkedIn. I don't know, but that is a generative task, and so I think what's important to understand here is that all searches trend towards take an action. The question is just how quickly do you get there? And now with AI, whether it's as an AIO or AI mode on Google or ChatGPT, Perplexity, Claude, Gemini, all these LLMs, right? The ultimate goal is for you to take action faster and better. Some of these things you can do in the interface right away, like again, spreadsheets, images, etc. And then other things just guide you to take the action. But I think that's important to understand because it means that, on the one hand, it means that if you still get traffic, you better figure out how they can take action on your site instead of like just giving them more content. Content is just the means to learning. It's not the end, right? People don't read blog articles because they want to read blog articles. They read blog articles because they want to do some stuff. So we need to figure out how to make experiences more interactive beyond just text, but for people to take action. Otherwise, they go to an LLM and take it, at some point. 2, the question is, in all these generative tasks, is there a point at which people need information? So if you want to, for example, let's just say you want to create an image for your LinkedIn profile header, and you go to ChatGPT and you say, these are the dimensions. Now this is what I want to see, create it there. Is there going to be a point at which you maybe do an informational search about what's the impact of actually having an optimized LinkedIn header, right? So I think it's important for us that in this whole conversation about generative intent and tasks that people do, to first of all acknowledge that this can be very volatile over time. It's very dependent on the capabilities of LLMs. 2, every search is a task down the line. So how can we shortcut that on our sites? And then 3, what information is connected to specific tasks that people are taking? And can you provide that information on your site so that you're visible when people take that action?
Okay, that's enough of the detour into philosophical area. Let's go back to ranking in AI overviews. So you touched on all those like first principles of SEO, but since we were discussing that AI overviews can be pulled from multiple pages, and those are not just the pages of your website, and we also discussed that like every time Google creates a new AI overview for a given query, they can vary, what's the right pronunciation, which pages they take this information from. It seems that kind of the missing piece, or the added piece to what SEO professionals have been doing, or no, again, this was like digital PR, getting links, getting mentions has always been the case for SEO professionals. It's just, I think you want to have kind of more control over what people say about you on their websites. Like, is the information recent, factual, yada, 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 and how many of these websites are talking about you, and what's the authority of these websites are talking about you. So it feels that these things are becoming increasingly more important, maybe even more important than your own website. Because again, you can say, you can pretend to be anyone on your website, but can anyone else corroborate that? So it feels that the major shift of how AI is changing the search game is that you need to care more about what other websites are saying about you. What do you think?
I think there's an argument to be made that was always the case. And I do agree with you, though. I think both is true, right? This was always the case, and now it's even more important. And I've seen this in this study that we performed. So let me just explain the study real quick because I keep coming back to it. I partnered up with Eric Van Buskirk on conducting a usability study for AI Oveviews. It took a lot of effort. 6 people worked on this. It cost a small car. Was thankfully sponsored by Zofu and DoFollow. I hope that's okay that I mentioned this. It created like 30 hours of video material, 125,000 of words of transcript. So very in depth. And what we did is we tracked 70 participants in the US across different age ranges and different devices when solving 8 tasks on Google. 8 tasks because we wanted to cover different user intents, like find a tax accountant in your area, find this information about this medical issue, buy earplugs under $15, etc. And I would say the learnings have fundamentally changed the way that I look at SEO, because one of the learnings is that people generally like and believe AI overviews. And they also really like to validate that AI answer on platforms like Reddit, YouTube, and other forums, right? So in that sense, it's absolutely true that it's more important to see and try to influence what other platforms are saying about you. because people use them in tandem with Google search and especially AI answers, right? So it's almost like a verification check where they're like, this seems to be true, but I'd rather see if another quote unquote human or unbiased source says the same thing. Source can be, again, Reddit, YouTube, forums, but also Trustpilot, G2, right? Review platforms. It can be Google, like Google Maps. So people really care about reviews and opinions from other humans to influence their decisions that are already largely influenced by AI answers.
Okay, let's shift gears a little bit, and I want to hear your answer about the question, or in some cases a statement, that people are starting to throw around every time some change happens in the SEO industry, and that is that SEO is dead. So stick a fork in it. SEO is dead. AI has disrupted it. Things will never be the same, blah, blah, blah. But other than just getting your kind of comments and impression on the whole SEO is dead narrative, I want to ask you, like, what are you seeing among your clients? How are they approaching SEO? Because I remember when I was talking to a lot of different kind of businesses, startups, many of them were kind of avoiding SEO because it's slow. It takes like months, sometimes years to bring you good results, as opposed to ads where you can get clicks immediately, or it is like too technical and you need to like hire like very expensive people to get it going, blah, blah, blah. So I know that people already, like businesses and startups, already had their kind of reservations as to why they don't want to invest in SEO. And now that we see traffic is going down, AI answers, blah, 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 what are you seeing? Is SEO dead this time?
I think SEO died many times, right? If you will, and it kind of revitalized over and over again. So I want to draw a different viewpoint of this, which is in the minds of leadership, right? CMOs, CEOs, COOs, chief revenue officers, etc. They see a 30% structural decline of web traffic, and in their minds, SEO might not be dead, but it's probably close to being in a coma, right? So it's very hard to go back to somebody who sees that number and then say, oh no, SEO is fine, like we're okay. Unless you can prove it with revenue data, right? That happens. I see some of my clients where they're like, oh, the traffic is down, but revenue is up. So cool, we keep doing this, right? But it's very important to understand that what the investors into SEO think. And as SEOs, at least on the in-house side, right? I'm not talking about like independent site owners, merchants, affiliates, and all that kind of stuff. For them, SEO might be well on life, right? I'm talking more about like enterprise companies or larger companies, right? Maybe post Series C or D, if I had to draw a line here. So for them, leadership sees that, okay, SEO is definitely in decline, at least the traditional form of SEO. So they all ask themselves the same question, which is, what is next? Like, what comes after? And I would say the majority of them see AI/AI search as the next thing. So everybody's hungry to invest. Everybody asks, like without a exception, everybody who I work with or sites that I'm seeing from the inside, they're all asking, cool, how can we be more visible in ChatGPT and Co? Because they all understand that there could be a potential first mover advantage. And I would say in some cases that's true. We can talk a bit more about how much classic SEO influences LLM visibility, etc. But they all smell a first mover advantage. They're all very keen to invest. All of a sudden, budgets are opening, right? And people and companies are willing to invest. And at the same time, I think there is a window in which you need to prove that out, or these budgets are going to dry up, right? So I don't know how long that window is open. Could be another year, could be another 18 months, could be 6 months. But at some point, right, the investors into new software and maybe content and marketing campaigns, they will want to see what the returns are. And as we all know, or have seen based on the data, AI traffic converts at a much, much higher or better rate than organic traffic, and it's also still very small, right? So all these companies, all this excitement is an investment in the future with an implied expectation that this AI traffic grows to a meaningful size, and hopefully at some point either comes on top of what's left of classic organic search from Google or adds even more. I've seen for the first time last week a chart of a company where you have the bottom line from SEO or classic SEO Google and a line with bottom line from ChatGPT, and they cross in the middle. It looks like an X. That's the first time I've ever seen this, and it's very encouraging. It's a smaller company, right? So you have to take that into account. But slowly there are these cases. But for the broad average, I mean, LLM conversions make up maybe between 1 and 10% of the organic bottom line. So it's not meaningful yet.
I really, really like your perspective. So basically, AI is not killing SEO. It's creating a whole new cycle. And this cycle starts pretty much from hype and fear of missing out, where everyone wants to jump on this train while you can still jump on this train, while it's not yet moving too fast. And I guess this explains because when all of these changes to search were rolling out and we started seeing like loss of traffic across the board, I was worried for the fate of Ahrefs revenue, to be honest with you, because like we tied ourselves so close with the SEO industry in all those years. I was thinking, and yet again, I was seeing some people saying, "Oh, like we're losing clients of our SEO agency on Twitter, blah 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 blah." But what you're saying makes a lot of sense because a lot of people understand that it might so happen that those chatbots are essentially the search engines of the future. And people will keep searching. People do need to find information. People do need to look for solutions to their problems. So someone is going to fill that gap. If it's not kind of traditional search 10 blue links when you need to land on the website, there could be something else. AI answer that gives you the information. And then again, you go straight to the website with a purchase intent. Like you say, the AI traffic converts a lot better because in a way, chatbot has done the job of persuading the person that this is the thing you need. Just go and buy it. Don't waste any more time. So it actually makes a lot of sense. And this is very optimistic and reassuring. And yeah, like I said, it explains why Ahrefs' own revenue, we had a few pretty good months, I can tell you. And I guess that's thanks to all the kind of AI related things we were releasing because people are really hungry for that information, for their AI visibility, for understanding how to rank in ChatGPT answers and other chatbot answers. With that being said, we discussed quite a bit how to kind of get your brand into AI overviews and how to get kind of a citation in AI overview. Is there any difference between what we discussed for Google AI overview and ranking in ChatGPT?
Yes,
or
yes.
like
and I do
showing up in ChatGPT.
Totally. And I do want to say, about the like disruption and hype and stuff. One mantra that I'm holding mentally up for myself is it's never as bad as it seems and it's never as good as it seems. So I think things have a funny way of playing out down the middle. It's never fully dystopian, never fully utopian, right? It kind of comes out in the middle. So I think the same is true here in this kind of disruption. There is absolutely something to it, and the world doesn't change tomorrow. Like this is a small gradual change. Like there's billions of Google users, and some of them, especially the older you get, this is again from the study that I did, the older you are, the more the less receptive you are to AI answers, right? The more you stick to the classic results. So a lot of nuance here in this conversation, but to give you a specific answer, there is a significant difference between appearing, or better said, between the impact of your SEO performance on Google and how you appear on ChatGPT. So we know that LLMs lean heavily on search engines like Bing and Google to ground their answers. So there is, of course, a carryover effect. But I've looked at the data, and what I've seen is that in some industries, the same winners on Google are also the winners on ChatGPT. A classic example is CRM software, right? You only have maybe 3 big CRM software vendors. I mean, you could argue you have a long tail of smaller ones, yes, but the market is dominated by 3 big ones, mainly Salesforce and HubSpot. And those are obviously the most visible ones on Google. They're also the most visible ones on ChatGPT. That is a very consolidated market or industry. The more fragmented markets and industries, there it's a completely different game. The same winners on Google are not the same winners in ChatGPT. And part of it is because, I mean, there's different reasons for that. I've seen sites that accidentally block LLMs, right? So they're opening the door for challengers or other contenders to come in and be visible. Some of them just have kind of a very old school approach to SEO that doesn't translate well to LLM. So there's all sorts of reasons for why in fragmented markets, the winner on Google are not the winners on ChatGPT, but we're seeing that. E-commerce is a good example. Some SaaS industries are good examples. And so I think at the very least, it's critical to monitor how you appear, how visible you are in LLMs, mainly ChatGPT. Like it's mostly like 80% ChatGPT really when it comes to what matters right now. And so I think at the very least you want to validate that you dominate your market, so to say, the same way on ChatGPT as you do on Google, because it's not always true. And if it's not, we already have the tools to kind of reverse engineer what creates visibility for your competitors. Is it specific pieces of content that you don't have? Is it specific stats or data that they have that you don't? Is it a specific brand reputation and sentiment? So the tools are already good enough to help you reverse engineer why somebody else is more visible or less visible than you in LLMs. But at the very least, I think everybody should check that for themselves.
Yeah, exactly. This is why we're putting so much effort into our brand radar tool, because it does exactly that. It pulls all the prompts where your brand is being mentioned, pulls all the citations, so you can analyze that for yourself. You can analyze it for competitors, and you can actually go to the actual pages and websites that LLMs are pulling their information from, and make sure that you're being well represented there. And actually, I think Patrick Stokes on our team did a pretty cool study where he, again, using brand radar data, he analyzed the top websites where LLMs are pulling their citations from, and he identified a bunch of biases. I think, for example, like Google was biased towards information from Reddit. They were often like pulling stuff from Reddit. I think Perplexity was biased towards Wikipedia or something. So yeah, people, if they're interested, they can look it up on Ahrefs' blog. Pretty cool research by Patrick Stokes.
And it's important. Okay. It's really important because it's another piece of like how this AI search world is slightly different than the classic Google world. Because as you mentioned in the beginning, we cannot just focus on our own websites anymore. We need to focus on other platforms too. And the mix and prioritization depends on the model that we're looking at, right? So we know that Google and Gemini, they love, for example, Reddit. Sure. A part of that is also the case for ChatGPT. But ChatGPT might lean on Wikipedia much, much more, right? Or on other platforms. So now the question is, cool, how are you portrayed on Wikipedia? What are ways that you can influence that or shape that experience? So in that sense, SEO has become much more multi-channel or multi-platform, and way beyond just mentions and backlinks, also in the sense that there's a different mix of sources that LLMs are pulling from.
I'm smiling because Wikipedia editors are probably bracing for all the SEO spammers that are now like running their way.
Spam's back, baby. It's back, yeah, well and live.
We'll see what happens with all those websites that LLMs rely that much for information. Okay, I like our takeaway. I fully agree with it. SEO is not dead. It's just like a new cycle. People will keep searching. And first principles apply. There would be a few changes that you need to make, but fundamentally, you can apply a lot of the skill set that you've gained in the past decade to this new era with just little adaptation. Let's talk about now using AI. So we don't have much time in this podcast episode to go into this. But still, I would love to know with all the hype, like you're not going to be replaced with AI, you're going to be replaced with people who know how to use AI, yada, yada, yada. And I've seen you publish some AI workflows was that folks from AI Ops, or like what was the tool that...
Ahrefs.
Ahrefs, yeah. They created some workflows based on your kind of methodologies. So what are the kind of best uses of AI for SEO and digital marketing that you saw? I don't give me your top three. What are the top three things that if people are not implementing or if not looking to implement, they are kind of falling behind?
I love that you asked that question, Tim, because as you said, AI goes both ways. And I'm not sure if most people are aware of this, but there is this implied battle or race. Race is maybe a better word. There's this implied race between marketers who are now becoming incredibly powerful because of AI and LLMs and search, which is becoming crazy powerful because of AI. And I'm not sure, right now it seems to me that we might be winning this race, and we're maybe able to influence LLM results and search results to a much, much higher level than LLMs and search engines can filter out, right? So to make that more tangible, my principal approach here is that LLMs and models are not yet good enough to replace a whole workflow. A workflow could be keyword research. It could be updating content. It could be creating net new content. It could be a technical audit. LLMs are not yet good enough to do all of that, but LLMs are good enough yet, or tools like Ahrefs that we spoke about, they're good enough to replace steps or to automate steps of these workflows. And so my approach is to codify the most important workflows for a company. So if you're not a marketplace, then it's probably some sort of content generation. Let's just say blog article generation, even though there's obviously way more than just blogs. So you have you write down the step-by-step that happens from ideation of a blog article or identifying that you want to write about a topic to publishing the article. And then you see which of these steps is the bottleneck. Maybe it's creating the draft. Maybe it's editing the piece. Maybe it's inserting it into the CMS.
Kevin, time to interrupt you and throw that jab you were looking for so long. Let's not talk about kind of generals and hypotheticals. I want to know something specific that I know you're using personally, or that you see anyone using personally that is kind of blowing you away, outside of going to ChatGPT and saying, I don't know, give me 5 titles for my article, or help me improve something, or blah, blah, blah. Something really impressive that is not just like a question to ChatGPT.
Cool. Okay. Look, ramp.com, right? Probably one of the most, or the fastest fintech company in history, just raised at a $16 billion valuation. I worked with Ramp for a whole year, integrated into the growth team. And something that we did is we took conversations between prospects that turn to customers and the sales team. We transcribed these conversations, and we used an AI tool, Humata AI, I'm sure I can mention it, to analyze these transcripts. I think we started with 50. And we asked questions like, what are the problems that customers are facing? What are the solutions that they're using right now? Who else are they looking at? What are they trying to achieve? What does success look like? Blah, 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 blah. All these questions, we used AI to identify the answers from all these conversations. And then we created blog articles that converted at a much, much higher rate because we knew that our target audience deals with these questions. And we never even looked for the search volume about this. And the beauty of AI is that we're able to now analyze many conversations. I mean, you can look into hundreds of conversations to identify from a first principle what topics people really care about, and then create content about them. That is one very specific example, and you can check the performance of the blog on Ahrefs.
Can I give you a little bit of pushback on this?
Yeah, sure.
So the pushback would be who is the source of, let's call them conversion triggers? Who is the source of kind of solid arguments that persuade people to buy? I would say that it's kind of like a marketing and product department. So you like this is what the term sales enablement means. It's like you take all the information on what makes your product awesome, and you give it to sales so that sales knew what to talk to people. Sales are not product experts. They need to be educated on the product. And it seems that when you're analyzing sales calls and want to create content that would persuade people to buy, it seems like you're flipping the script. You're putting sales as people who know your product well and know like what works on customers, like who is creating the sales enablement material. It's kind of like closed loop here, and you don't know where this loop starts. Like, what is the first source of information? Who's giving those like conversion triggers in the first place? Yeah, I can totally see how you can have like, I know at Ahrefs we have multiple tools, we have multiple features, we have multiple use cases. You give all that to sales, and then you analyze sales calls, and they're telling you, oh, like, I know, ChatGPT index and brand radar is the best. But we also see this with subscriptions. So we don't need to use AI to analyze sales calls. We're just seeing what converts, kind of like this. So what would you say to this?
Well, I would expect that salespeople know the product as well. Maybe not as deep as a product person, but they should know it. However, the key here is to look at the conversations of prospects that turn to customers. Because not all prospects turn to customers, right? Some of them, maybe the price is too high or they don't believe that the product is good enough, right? So filtering out the conversations you look at by the successful ones, that is a key to make sure that you also have the conversations where, you know, the salesperson was able to quote unquote convince or help the person buy the product. Okay.
Any other use case? That is, I must say that makes sense. That's pretty cool. Use AI to analyze sales conversations at scale. And this is, I believe, like, we don't use Gong ourselves, but I believe Gong has this kind of functionality because they automatically analyze all the sales calls you have, and you can easily search whenever people mention your competitors. You can search for any objection, and it would give you all the sales calls. This is very cool. But to be honest, I don't see this as you have to use AI as a marketer. It's like you have to be up to date with like what's possible. Like, and if you know that the tool like Gong exists and it has this functionality and you're not using it, you're silly. What I don't like about the whole kind of you're going to lose your job to someone who knows how to use AI is it smells like some secret sauce to me. While when I try to talk to people, I'm not saying secret sauce. I'm saying, oh, like, use Gong. Oh, really? I'm doing this. Like, give me the secret AI sauce.
But look, I will say, I mean, Gong, Chorus, right? They all do this. I will say that almost nobody who I talk to actually listens to customer conversations, right? SEOs have for such a long time just done keyword research by search volume, maybe a slightly more refined approach, but nobody's listening to customers. And the reason is because for the last 2 decades, marketing was quantified, right? Performance marketing works incredibly well. So marketers stopped talking to customers. Nobody does that actually. So the first key is like going back, because when you identify a topic that you know is important for your target audience, and maybe it doesn't have search volume, right? Maybe nobody else goes after this, right? You're going to be the only source of knowledge for a lot of these topics, right? So, and people will look from the outside with SEO tools on your website and like, why are they going after this stuff? Why are they not getting organic traffic? But on the inside, you're laughing because you're seeing that traffic is going up and conversions are going up, right? So there is a bit of a competitive advantage part here. Now, the secret source thing is, again, automating workflows like content generation to a large part.
Okay, let's go to the second use case. I don't think we'll have time for 3, but we discussed one when you use AI to analyze sales calls at scale, and then you use that to identify like conversion triggers, identify objection handling, things like that, and you create great content that kind of does it on autopilot without sales needing to talk to people. Counted. Give me something else.
Cool. The second thing, we already spoke about this, but like providing an interactive tool or experience on top of just text, right? So nowadays with vibe coding, which everybody, before you freak out, I know people are like, vibe coding, vibe marketing, this is all BS. But nowadays, reality is you can create little tools very, very quickly with solutions like V0, Lovable, right, Cursor, etc., to make your content more interactive with generators, calculators, quizzes, little apps, right, widgets. I think that's a critical part. Marketers can now use AI tools to build a proof of concept, validate that this works and is important, and then hand it over to an actual developer team who does this the right way, right? Like, I'm not technical enough to build these tools in like production ready, but I'm good enough to prove the concept out with something that just works, right? Like an MVP type of thing. Very underrated. But hugely effective. You can like look at some of the websites of the companies that I work with, and you'll see some of these widgets or tools across a lot of their pages. Big impact, not just on the engagement with the content, therefore the performance of the content, but also the conversion rates, right? So something very tactically that you can do now is you can have, for example, a calculator on a standalone landing page, but you can also embed that calculator in your blog content or your content hubs, and then provide a better experience, improve conversion, blah, 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 right? You can be very creative with how you build a funnel.
If you get any traffic to your website to start with.
Yeah, of course. The requirement is to get any traffic, right? So that is number two that I would say is kind of a thoughtful approach to vibe coding. And we maybe just need a different word for this.
I agree. That's a cool use case, but I'll give you a bit of pushback as well. And this pushback is grounded in what's happening at Ahrefs marketing department. So I was pushing Dmitry to give marketing department a dedicated developer for quite a few years, just to as you say, vibe code whatever marketing department wants, like those small kind of mini tools, some of them silly, some of them useful, whatever we need. Like kind of if marketers have a development resource and they're able to do something more than write words and create images and do landing pages, that always leads to something cool. And only when kind of vibe coding became available and creating those little tools that don't necessarily need to be production ready, but rather proof of concept has become like magnitudes easier and fast, Dmitry officially gave the marketing department our own developer, kind of vibe coder, a person who is actually good at development, but his job would be to vibe code different ideas that marketers have, like you say, of like mini tools, automating workflows and stuff like this. Why? Because I understand that vibe coding is going forward and you can explain in plain English to AI what you want to build and it would build it for you. But still, from the experience that I'm seeing, from the feedback of the people who actually use it, if you're not a developer, there's a high likelihood that you're going to waste a lot of time and get stuck. Yeah. If you are a developer, you're not going to get stuck. You will identify, you will tell AI like what to do. It would fix it for you and you'll have the result in like 10 times faster than it was. So in a way, I agree with you. AI unlocks, and again, there's a middle ground. There's a case of Ryan Law, our director of content, who actually took some Python courses, taught himself the basics of coding, and now he's legit good using AI to create kind of scripts, codes, because he has this background. He spent time kind of learning even the fundamentals. But what he's telling me, because I don't have experience coding myself, what he's telling me that without knowing all those fundamentals and without being able even to talk to AI kind of as a developer to developer, he wouldn't be as efficient and he would be spending magnitudes more time and he would still need to go and do research and understand like where the issue is. So yeah, vibe coding is a cool thing, but it's not necessarily marketing. Like I really like our approach where we got ourselves a developer in our team. And why did we get it? Because with vibe coding, we can just churn out things very, very fast. And then we can show it to our product team. And they would say like to product team, to Dmitry, our CEO. And he would say, yeah, I like this idea. Let's kind of productize it. Let's add it to Ahrefs. So yeah.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I had that same experience, right? Coding can be extremely frustrating, and you get to like 99% quickly, and then the last percent just takes, 5 times as much time as it took to get to 90%, 99%. So all of that is true. And I think there's some like things that you can do to kind of make it more efficient, like first creating a PRD with AI, right? Like designs, showing what good looks like. There's a whole bunch of stuff you can do to increase your chances. But the reality is a developer will always do a better job than a marketer. And it's still the first time that a marketer can create tools at all. You know what I mean? Like before it was always like, hey, please give us a developer. No, okay, then we can't do this. Now that the house is on fire from a traffic perspective, it's the perfect time to think more diligently and intentful about this. And so I love that you have a developer. I think that's the right call. I think every company should aim for that. And again, these little experiences can go way beyond just a single landing page. You can embed them in many pages. You can string them together, right? That's another thing that people forget. You can buy the little suite of mini apps across your site, and become like a more product focused marketing team. Do you want to go into the third thing?
No, we actually don't have enough time for this, so I will ask you a quick question. Did you vibe code something that is kind of public that people can go and check out?
Yeah, all the time, man. Like I'm putting my money where my mouth is. So I'm writing this newsletter called the Growth Memo, and I think for over the last couple of weeks, almost every Growth Memo newsletter has vibe coded or like not vibe coded tools at the very bottom. I will say it's only for premium subscribers. But yeah, bought like an intent classifier tool that will classify your questions and keywords by user intent. A topic, a content cannibalization identification tool.
But no online tool that would be available on your website for people to just go and click around.
I mean, if you're subscribed, yes. There's like
only for paid subscribers.
Only for paid subscribers right now, yes.
Okay. Kevin, it's been a pleasure. Always great to catch up with you, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in San Diego in October because you're speaking at Ahrefs Evolve conference. I'm looking forward to a talk because we're recording this in July, so it's like July, August, September, October is like 4 months until the event, and who knows how much stuff will happen in AI and search. So I'm sure you'll come with some fresh information for people. But yeah, thanks for doing this.
Thank you. Been super excited about this. Not disappointed in the slightest, and very, very pumped up about San Diego. So I'll see you there.
Thanks a lot for sticking till the very end of this episode. I guess that means you enjoyed it, right? Because if you did, I have to ask you to subscribe to this YouTube channel, or maybe click the follow button if you're listening to this on Apple or Spotify. Not sure if you know this, but subscriptions and follows are the strongest signal for these platforms to show this piece of content to more people. So I would really, really appreciate it if you would follow and subscribe. Thanks in advance, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.